Episode 127 was a complete and total mess.
Know your place, worm. Prepare yourself. Damn Saiyan.
Solid animation, good fights, and 17 becoming the MVP of the tournament. Those were the positive moments in episode 127 for me. The rest of the episode was a complete mess. The Jiren backstory was essentially The Last Jedi, because just like in The Last Jedi, spoiler alert, where we had all this sort of build up to who Rey's parents were, and then we find out that they're nobodies, and a lot of the community did not like that. A lot of the people didn't like that. It's essentially the same thing here. When I first saw this picture earlier today of this episode, a leaked picture, I thought that we were going to get Jiren's Lost Universes theory being confirmed. I thought that the silhouette were all the Jiren races and he was fighting for his lost universe. But no, that is not the case. It's literally the most generic and bland backstory that I've heard in a very long time for any character. And this is one of the most interesting and mysterious characters other than Hit to grace TV screen, and he's given this backstory that's just so generic, man. Essentially, he was a kid, and his parents were killed by an evildoer, a villain, and so he's saved by this guy that kind of looked like a Supreme Kai, but I guess on second viewing, not really. This guy trains him. Jiren tries to get more strength, and is a natural fighter, it is implied. And then they get a bunch of followers, like similar to the Pride Troopers, essentially. They then get attacked, I guess, by the evildoer again, and everybody's killed, including his master, besides Jiren. And then it doesn't really explain what happens next in full detail. It just says that Belmont just says Jiren tries to rise again, but the surviving students wouldn't follow him. It doesn't say why. It doesn't say it was because he lost and they only follow strength. Is that what the implication is? Because that's pretty crappy, seeing as how he was raised by these guys. And so they betray him at that point, and then he goes ahead and follows strength on his own, and then nothing. Then it cuts from Jiren being 17 or 18 years old, and then it cuts to whatever Jiren is now, because Jiren didn't want to talk about his backstory anymore. And then 17 even kind of goes on this, you have kind of a human backstory, you're not just a killing machine. But then he kind of insults Jiren, telling him like, you're dwelling on the past, and he also implies that he knows what Jiren's wish is, but never actually says it. Nobody says what Jiren's wish is, so it's left up in the air. Is it that he wants to get his parents back, his master back, his students back, or does he want to become even stronger? And honestly, it just made... I understand the whole path of becoming stronger. We have a main character that's entire path is to get stronger, and that is Goku. And essentially, they did the same thing with Jiren, except Jiren is like less likable than Goku. Even though now at a flip of a hat, he turns on Toppo in the last episode and basically became the people that abandoned him when he was a kid, because they abandoned him assumingly because of the fact that he has his strength. He lost the fight against the evildoer, who we don't know who he is or if he was killed or not. And then Jiren did the same thing to Toppo. Toppo didn't have enough strength to beat Vegeta, and so he basically cast him aside. And so it doesn't really help Jiren. Honestly, at this point now we're seeing how the story is being constrained because it's being rushed, because Dragon Ball Super is going to be ending in a few more episodes, and they should have really built on Jiren and Toppo and Universe 11's backstory from the very beginning of the tournament, at least within the first few instances of meeting Jiren, because then we would have gave a shit about what happens to Jiren from now. I really don't care I really don't want him to win, honestly. I felt like this backstory may make me want him to win, but it doesn't. I still want Universe 7 to win. I know they're the home universe, but still, it didn't do anything. So in my opinion, the story failed very, very majorly there. Then we have the whole concept of where 17 lies in power level. 17, I guess, took Jiren by surprise and was the first one to really leave an imprint and injure him, which was pretty cool. Again, 17 had a lot of shine, but at that point I was like, all right, I can understand that Jiren had, his defenses down, and even though 17's not that strong, he was able to get past them and hurt him, and then maybe Jiren's a little bit tired, whatever the case might be. But then Jiren, he gets this huge energy ball, and he's pushing it toward the Z fighters, the remaining. Goku's down, Vegeta's down, and 17 has to block for them. And what was the plan here? Because it seems like this energy ball isn't strong enough to destroy and disintegrate all three of them. And the reason it seems that way is because 17 had to self-destruct to stop it, to stop the ball. So was it strong enough to, like, what was the strength on that energy ball? Was it just the force that was going to knock them down? Because if that was the case, I mean, I feel like maybe 17 could have done something else to try to move something. I don't know, or maybe he could have encased the other two in balls and pushed them aside, because he can move the barriers or something. I don't know. It could have been really anything, because it is shown in this episode that he can make barriers in front of him. He can make those barriers into a line, so he can manipulate the barriers outside of his body, just like he put Vegeta and Goku in barriers. So he could have just pushed them and moved the barriers and moved them somewhere on other rubble or something, and then took in the ball, and then that would have pushed them back. But because he had to self-destruct, that really made it seem like the ball was a lot stronger and needed him to self-destruct in order to counteract it. It also was kind of confusing, because at first glance I didn't know he'd self-destructed, because I mean, he didn't have this huge, glorious sort of self-destruct. I mean, he was implying that he was going to do it, but then it wasn't really clear until I watched it again. And it was also confusing, because I'm like, wait a minute, didn't Krillin remove that self-destruct part of him, that self-destruct bomb on him? Didn't he remove that? Or I guess maybe he's using just self-destruct as the technique. It's all really muddled, and so this episode asks a lot of you and throws a lot of implications, but doesn't really have any real answers, and if anything, it makes things a little bit more confusing. And then the last part of the episode really that just really struck a nerve with me is the fact that nobody takes an L harder than Frieza at this point. Nobody does. Frieza has not shown the prowess that he had when Goku resurrected him or brought him back originally, and then Frieza was going on about how he's in his true form, or his perfect form, whatever, and he had both his arms were glowing, one was red and one was blue. That prowess he showed in that episode, he has not shown it at all in this tournament, like not one bit. He has had little moments here and there, but he really can't contend, and no wonder he can't contend with the Saiyans, because his body can't go as long or as hard. He loses stamina very quickly. He's being bounced around. Even true Golden Frieza attacks Jiren. Jiren bounces him off of him with only his stare. So I mean, you could really twist that in any way you want to see it. Like, oh, he came directly at Jiren, so Jiren was ready for him, and you have to catch Jiren off guard, kind of what Goku said. But at the same time, though, Frieza, come on, man. He's being just thrown around like a sack of potatoes in this whole tournament so far, and especially by Toppo and Jiren, and hasn't really shown anything that has made me been like, oh, that was a good choice. Honestly, at this point, I'm thinking Fat Boo would have done more in this case. He has more capabilities. He has more abilities that would allow him to be more maneuverable in this sort of thing besides his intellect. I don't know. I'm just rambling on at this point because of the fact that I really was disappointed mainly by Jiren's backstory, and the fact that we really didn't get a whole lot of insight on what his wish was. I really hope that they kind of add more to it in the next episode, like the next couple episodes. If they're all about his backstory and they give us little information by little, then I may be okay with that, depending on how it goes, because it really hasn't even explained why Jiren is strong. It just has Belmont just stated that, yeah, he likes to seek power, and that's what drew me to him. So anyway, guys, I have to give this episode a 4 out of 7 Dragon Balls. So if you guys want to know what that is when it comes to rating anything out of 10, it's a 5 out of 10 essentially, because it actually could have gone lower. It could have gone 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 7 Dragon Balls, but I put it up 1 because 17 is basically a 17 episode, and he did amazing with this episode. Had some of the best fight scenes. He attacked Jiren head on. He was the first one to really do damage to Jiren. He self-destructed himself in an episode, which Vegeta really didn't even do last episode. And so definitely 17 put up the episode a little bit more. But besides that, there was just so much hype that was built up behind Jiren, and I felt like episode 127 definitely fell short. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of episode 127. Which one is it? What is Jiren's wish? I gave you guys the options. Is it family? Is it teacher, followers, or more strength? I don't know. Is it the way? Who knows at this point? Drop me a like, guys, if you guys are excited to see more of potentially Jiren's backstory as we go on with the next 3 to 4 episodes. Subscribe. This is going to be Dragon Ball Black signing off.